Hi everyone, this is Balázs from RacingBrick. A lot of you asked whether the Ford Model T was the only non-Formula 1 LEGO Icons car for this year, and apparently it wasn't, because this is the new LEGO Icons 11381 Jaguar E-Type. And I have to say, a classic car on a classic looking box really works here. This is one of those cases where the 18 plus black box design actually fits the subject very well. On the back of the box we get another angle of the car, the dimensions, the main features, and also a photo of the real Jaguar E-Type. Let's open the box. The set has 1673 pieces, the price is €140 or dollars, and it will be available from the 1st of August. For local prices and pre-order options, please check the link in the description below. We get 10 numbered bags, 4 tires, 2 smaller unnumbered bags, and the manual. The manual starts with some background information about the E-Type, and specifically about 77RW, the first production open 2-seater version. This car had a pretty adventurous trip to the Geneva Motor Show, where the E-Type was officially launched. Then we get more information about the real car, the LEGO model, and of course the usual part list at the end. Normally I only show this section quickly and move on, but this time I found something quite interesting. The set obviously has tons of dark green parts, but if we check the second page of the inventory, only a handful of them appear here. The majority of the dark green pieces are listed separately at the end, which is quite unusual. And if you take a closer look, all of these parts seem to have new element IDs, even the ones that were already used recently in other sets. Something similar happened earlier this year with the medium azure pieces in the Maersk container vessel. That color apparently received a small update, but the difference was very difficult to see with the naked eye, so I don't expect anything dramatic here either. Still, it is an interesting detail. Now let's start building. The first item is already a bit unusual. I think this is supposed to be the toolkit that later goes into the trunk. And the next steps are not exactly conventional either. At this point, the build feels surprisingly technique-heavy for an Icons vehicle. The chassis is built in a very interesting way. Studied elements slowly take over, but there are still quite a few Technic solutions mixed in. The socket wrench from the tool bag is used as a handbrake this time, which is a nice little touch. And I also had this very unusual leftover piece. I went through the manual twice, but apparently this one is simply an extra. We also get a printed ticket tile representing the ferry ticket used to cross the English Channel. After the rear axle, we build this fairly complicated, mostly Technic assembly that goes into the front section. The steering system comes next, followed by the front axle. As usual for this type of LEGO Icons car, there are no gears involved, so the steering wheel does not turn a lot, but it does work. This is not the first Icons car where minifigure utensils are used as pedals. We have seen a similar idea in the Ford Model T and also in the Shelby Cobra. Then we had several jumper plates on multiple levels, and the first dark green parts finally appear as well. The sand green seats are installed next, and we also get a printed map showing the route the engineer took from the UK to the Geneva Motor Show. The next assembly is already pretty complex, and honestly that is only the beginning. Here we use a minifigure snowboard, then we get this very nice printed Jaguar logo tile, and I think these red elements are temporary supports for the assembly during the build. That is a clever idea, and as you will see later, they are not the only temporary supports in the model. So after the relatively straightforward chassis section, suddenly we enter complete building mayhem. Parts are facing in all directions, we get half-stud offsets, clips, bars, angled connections, and all sorts of unusual solutions. This section is on a completely different level. Flowers and plume feathers are used to form the 3.8 liter straight-six Jaguar XK engine, among other things. And by the way, hardcore LEGO builders will either be very excited or very annoyed to see these pieces included here. It really depends on whether you are buying or selling on Bricklink. Because the average selling price of this tiny piece is currently above $80, which is absolutely amazing. Well, I guess that is about to change very soon. You really need to pay attention to the correct alignment of things going forward, as they are still pretty complex. We built the first section of the hood, this part is built sideways, then we had some larger slopes. Notice the reinforced connections with the bars here, and yes, the 3D puzzle continues. After a whole collection of carefully selected slopes, here comes another assembly that will sit at a very specific and completely irregular angle. And with this section, the hood is complete. Now, if you are wondering what we are building with this angled structure, you will figure it out soon. But I can already tell you, I think I will go full fanboy mode very shortly, because the complexity here is really mind-blowing. Look at that subtle angle. It is not just placed there randomly, it is perfectly supported. You can see how the angle follows the step shape of the outer pieces, and that line continues here as well, again with proper support below it. So yes, this is the assembly with the doors, as you probably guessed. The mechanism feels heavy and accurate, but what really impressed me is the shape. I know I might look a bit obsessed with this, but look how perfectly this line flows along the side of the car. We had the steering column and its support, then even more angled assemblies follow, held in place with another unusual combination of parts. In the next assembly, the two halves are reversed. This is another reinforcement point between the two different orientations. This section will become the rear of the car with the brick-built lights, the printed license plate, more red support pieces, and some sort of opening mechanism. It is attached like this. Then the structure is reinforced, and most of the open areas are covered. Next, we close this gap and the printed dashboard elements and install the steering wheel. There is another nice printed tile there as well. After this, we return to the Technic universe with this rather complicated assembly. Then it is time to open the envelope. Inside we get the soft top, and once you figure out how to fold all these tentacles, it should look like this. Now we can attach it to the main build. This rear cover section is also positioned at a very specific angle. After so many crazy 3D building tricks, this one almost looks conventional now, but it is still a very nice solution. We are slowly approaching the end of the build. The trunk lid is a little bit challenging to put in place, but once it is installed, we can test the opening mechanism. It also has a nice printed detail on it. Then we add the double exhaust and attach the rear wheels with this very cool looking new rim. And here is another important new part, the wheel arch. It is not huge, but it is exactly the kind of part that can make a big difference for a model like this. The rear bumper gets an extension using this magic wand element, and after adding the rear view mirror, we can open the last bag with a new windscreen piece. After the front wheel arches and bumpers, the final details are the ones I was honestly the most afraid of, the headlights. The last official step is to remove the red support pieces. These are not used anymore, so you can consider them extra parts. And of course, let's not forget to put the tools in the trunk. Before I call the build finished, let me show you a mistake I made. I did not attach this grey part properly to the red claws, so the hood angle was not perfect. Once that was fixed, the alignment looked much better. And now the Jaguar E-Type is finished. Here is the completed car. Yes, the dark green surface is definitely a fingerprint magnet. You really want to clean it properly if you want it to look its best. But the car deserves it because in person it looks fantastic. If you are wondering about the uniformity of the dark green color, I only found this one piece to be slightly lighter than the others. The rest looks pretty good. Of course, the model uses different surfaces and angles, so some parts reflect the light differently, but overall the color consistency is better than I expected. Now, I do have one major complaint, but we will get to that in a moment. First, let's check the functions, because for an Icons car there are quite a few. The hood opens and it is secured by these two studs. Underneath we get a super detailed engine bay that looks great. The doors open as well. They feel sturdy, they do not open too far, and inside we get a very nice and detailed interior. The steering wheel movement is slightly limited, but it is still functional. Then we have the soft top. It is neatly hidden in this compartment until we unfold it, and then it becomes a fully functional roof. To be honest, there is no very precise final position or solid attachment point for it, but it works and it can be hidden again quickly. The trunk has a button that helps with opening, and the toolbox fits inside. So overall, we get a good amount of functionality in an Icons display car. Now let's talk about the final look. The completed Jaguar E-Type looks great. Yes, some surfaces are broken up, and there are edges where the real car obviously has no edges. But that smooth and organic shape would be almost impossible to recreate more precisely without using a lot of custom molded parts. The fact that this flowing line starts from the headlights and continues almost all the way to the end of the door is fascinating, because most of it does not follow a standard Lego angle or curvature. The new wheel arch pieces also work very well. They hide enough of the wheels to make the car look more accurate, but still leave enough space for functional steering. I was really curious and honestly a bit afraid to see how the organic shape of the E-Type would be translated into Lego form, but after building it, I really think this is about as far as you can push the current LEGO system without dedicated parts. Whether that will be good enough for the audience is a different question. Here is the Jaguar next to a few recent LEGO Icons vehicles, just so you can compare the dimensions. Now let's go through a few smaller issues. The front indicators are missing. They should be somewhere around this area. Considering the available space and the way the front is built, I assume there was simply no room for them, and apparently LEGO did not want to go with a printed solution either. Staying in this area, another small issue is the flexibility of the bumpers. Both at the front and at the rear, they are quite easy to misalign. The Jaguar emblem at the front also sticks out a bit too much, but again, this is probably one of those details that would be very difficult to solve properly without a dedicated custom piece. And that brings us to the elephant in the room, the headlights. I have to confess, when I first saw the box, I could only focus on the headlights. For me, they looked quite out of place. Now, after building the car and seeing it in person, they do look somewhat better. But I still think this flat surface feels very different from the original design. I really hope most people will have a different opinion, but for me, the headlights are still the weakest part of the model. I could not really find a better existing LEGO solution either, and I'm sure the designer tested many different versions before settling on this one. But I think this is the point where this otherwise amazing build would have deserved one dedicated part to capture the headlights better. Because, without a doubt, this was easily the most enjoyable LEGO build for me in 2026 so far, and it is probably the best LEGO Icons car building experience I have had in a long time, which is quite surprising even for me, especially compared to my first impressions after seeing the box. If we compare it to recent Icons cars, it has more pieces than the Shelby Cobra, while costing €10 or $20 less. It is only slightly more expensive than the Ford Model T, but honestly, the Model T feels almost like a Duplo build compared to this one. So I think the price is pretty good compared to other LEGO Icons vehicles. If you are looking for a complex, interesting and genuinely enjoyable build, this is really it. I can highly recommend it. And one final thought about the competition, because I'm sure this will come up in the comments. Yes, there are other brick build models that look more realistic or more faithful to the real car, but those usually achieve that with a lot of custom molded parts and a much simpler building experience. If your top priority is the most accurate exterior look, then of course you are free to choose those. But personally, I respect the build complexity and the ingenuity of using the LEGO system in creative ways to solve difficult shapes, and this model is absolutely filled with exciting solutions. LEGO's challenge with these cars is always finding that very fine balance between the die-cast model look and the LEGO look. In this case, I think they stopped just one step before I would call it perfect. At the same time, I understand why LEGO is reluctant to make one-off dedicated parts that might not be useful elsewhere. Although to be fair, we have seen plenty of those for minifigures and other builds, so maybe this car would have deserved that one extra step. So now I would really like to hear your opinion. What do you think about the LEGO Icons Jaguar E-Type? How do you like the build, the techniques, the functions and the final look? And what do you think about those headlights? Let's talk about it in the comments section. If you enjoyed this video, then please give it a thumbs up and don't forget to subscribe with notifications as more exciting LEGO videos are coming soon. See you next time, bye bye.